Hello everyone, Alexander Love here. So happy to be here with all of you today. In this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to explore the third key to unlocking our prism. Now, if you haven't seen the first video where I go over what the prism is, I would suggest that you go check that out first. You can click the little thing at the top of the screen and you can watch that first. But just in review, the prism is a name for the deepest aspects of who we are. This includes our observer, which are the lenses through which we make meaning. They're the lenses through which we know the world. Another aspect of the prism is the arising reality, the question of what is real. And this includes our inner states of being and our sense of what is real out there. And as our sense of knowing grows up and broadens and deepens, then the world that we see as a real world broadens and deepens. The third aspect of the prism is interaction. This is the way in which we move through the world and we engage with it. That we're not just an individual being that's sort of walking down a street with everything sort of nearby, but not in connection with us, but that we are wholly entangled with the world. We are a part of the world and we are interacting with it all of the time. The fourth and final aspect of the prism is this notion of becoming, that the way that we make meaning, the way that we observe the world and know the world, the arising reality that we are in relationship with, all of those things are in a process of unfolding, of emerging, of growing, and of transforming. Each of these keys to unlocking the prism offers us a different way of looking at this map to give us new possibilities for how we can intervene and make change in a given moment to then make a change within the totality of our being. Because the prism reflects the deepest aspects of who we are, making a change in any one of these places has a deep transformative impact in our lives. So in the previous videos, we've looked at the first key, we've looked at the second key, and in this video, we're going to look at the third key. Now, the third key to unlocking the prism, it begins with our reality, begins with reality. It begins with the question of ontology. It begins with looking at what do we already experience as real in our environment. Then we'll look at how the way that our environment is shaped will have a profound impact on how we interact with the world, which in turn will change our observer. So let's begin looking at this from the perspective of the non-human world. We can look at our reality in the context of our environment. So you and I have things that are around us. We live in environments. Our home is an environment. Our workplace is an environment. When we walk through the city, that is an environment. When we walk through a neighborhood, that is an environment. Now, it reminds me of my sister-in-law, who is a landscape architect. Her job is to look at the existing landscape within a town or a city and then devise new things that can be added to it that change how human beings experience themselves and experience others within that environment. She recently started learning about urban forestry, which is the art and science of looking at a cityscape and exploring how do we bring trees or maintain trees that are already there to change the environment for everyone that's living there. And we know that when we have a cityscape that has nature within it, people interact with each other differently. People engage with their environment and with one another in a completely different way. It changes our state of being. It changes the way we interact with each other. Thus, it changes the way that we know each other. It changes the observing lenses through which we are looking. So when we're looking to use this third key to unlock the prism, we're looking at how do I change my environment as a way to change the way that I'm moving in the world, moving with the world, so that it can change my observer. It changes the way that I know, that I interpret, that I make meaning. So a simple example of this is when you rearrange your living room. So you have a living room that's set up in a certain way, and then you decide to just mix it all up and you move the couch around and you take out a bunch of extra things that don't really seem like they belong there. And immediately the environment changes, your state of being changes. So the external reality has changed. Then the internal reality of your experience changes. This immediately creates an environment where you move differently. Maybe you now want to hang out in your living room. And so you want to invite more people over. And now you hang out and have different kinds of conversations, and then your observer changes. So that was a non-human example where we essentially focus on changing our environment in some way, but we can also use a human example. Every single one of us are in relationship to other people in the world. Each person is an ontological reality. That means they indeed exist. Okay, your friends exist, your life partner exists, your coworkers exist. All of these are arising in the world as a part and as a feature of your existing reality. Now, all of us build relational dynamics with these people in our lives, right? We have all these different people, we build relationships, and then we form perspectives that are emerging from these relationships. So go ahead and choose a relationship in your life that feels like there's a struggle in it, or there's some sort of stagnation, or it's not really reaching its full potential. Take a minute and then notice what are the relational dynamics. So who is there? This is looking at what exists. This is our look at reality. Who are the people involved? Is it a group of friends? Is it a team at the workplace? Is it your life partner? So take a look at, okay, who is a part of this dynamic? Then you can look at the relational aspect. What are the patterns of our relationship? What are the ways in which we are always interacting in the same way? And then also look at, as a result of who is there and how we are interacting, what are some of the observers, the shared observers that we have? What this can look like is, how are you perceiving in this relationship? How is the other person perceiving in this relationship? What are some of the shared perspectives that you assume to be true in this relationship? So now, once you've journaled this and mapped this out a little bit, the next step is to bring in something new into this relational dynamic. So just like my sister-in-law might invite bringing in another tree into a place in the city that's going to immediately change the way that we're interacting with our environment, you might choose to bring in another person. Maybe your example was a dynamic with your life partner. So what you could do is you could bring a friend to have a conversation with the three of you. So now, as soon as you bring in a new person, your environment, your reality has shifted. This will then lead to a completely new way of interacting. Because when you were just in relationship with your life partner, you had a pattern of relationship that was consistent and continuous, and you both had the perspectives that were arising in that dynamic. When you bring in a friend, it shakes up the entire thing. Your environment changes, your reality changes, the dynamic of interaction will now change. And then this will support the transformation of your shared observers, right? The ways that each of you individually and collectively are making meaning will change. This is, of course, something that we see with relationship coaching or with therapists that work with couples. And what this is essentially doing is it's inviting another person to enter the dynamic, which shakes it all up and it changes things. But you don't necessarily have to hire somebody to come and do this. This is something that we can, many times, we can do just by shaking things up, by changing the environment, by bringing in another human being or other human beings. So in this video, we looked at the third key to unlocking the prism. We focused on the arising reality, which we looked at in terms of our non-human environment or our human environment, and how simply by changing the environment, by bringing in something new, it changes the way that we interact with ourselves. It changes the way we interact with each other. It changes the way that we interact with this new world. And in turn, this gives birth to a different way of knowing the world. So I hope this was helpful for you. As always, I suggest that you try to put this into practice, try it out so that it goes from the theoretical to the embodied. And that is where the power of this model lives. The power lives in the practice.